Welcome back to the Exempt List. This is your host, Charles McDonald. You are on Yahoo's Zero Blitz podcast feed. Today, we're talking about all things New York sports with ESPN's Damien Woody, 12-year vet, played offensive line for the Jets and the Patriots, and it was a two-time Super Bowl champion. We're going to get into all of the hilarity from the Jets and the Broncos this past weekend, some thoughts on the Giants, and where the Cowboys and 49ers are after the game. And also, at the end of the show, we're going to get to your voicemail. So let's get right into it. All right. Welcome back to the Exempt List. Today, I have a special guest, one of my favorite people to talk football with, watch talk football, especially when it comes to the New York sports teams, which is in our own different ways, a curse that we've been afflicted with. ESPN's Damien Woody, 12-year NFL vet, two-time Super Bowl champion, Patriots, Jets. How you doing, dude?
I'm good, brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm glad. Like, we're at the point in the season where we start to know some things about some of these teams. You get through the first month, and I think some of those early games can be a little wacky. But now, with 5 games under our belt, we kind of start to know some stuff. I think it's fun once you start to see these teams. Not for every team. See what they've become. After an offseason and a draft, free agency, training camp, and now this is kind of like the final product. You can't run from it. You can't hide from it. This is kind of what you are at this point. So this is definitely my favorite point in the season. But as we've started off the last few podcasts, we're going to start this one off the same with some funny stuff that happened this weekend. And this plays into exactly why I wanted to get you on, because I don't know if there was a funnier story this weekend than the Jets' interaction with the Broncos. After they beat Denver, Nate Hackett's homecoming after, all this stuff last year happened. Sean Payton's comments about Nathaniel Hackett doing the worst coaching job in NFL history. And then they win the game 24-21, prompting a whole bunch of social media posts. I know they posted Garrett Wilson wearing the bucket hat and the shades from the first game. Robert Saleh said they should have blown him out after the game as well. Nate Hackett got a game ball. We got a Kevin James meme from when he played Sean Payton in the Netflix movie, photoshopped over the Broncos. So this was clearly like something that mattered to the organization. What was your takeaway on really just how the Jets kind of handled that after the Broncos win? Because I thought it was funny and kind of earned.
Yeah, I think the big takeaway for me is don't believe anything what these coaches and players tell you during the week. Everyone wants to be kind of, political and just say, oh, it's no big deal. But trust me, as a former player, when stuff like that happens in the media, we keep all the receipts. We want all the smoke, when it's time. And clearly, when the Jets won that game, they released it all. On their social media, through the media itself. Like, they were ready for all the smoke. So that was my big takeaway, man. Don't believe people be lying in the media when they say that this stuff doesn't bother them, it doesn't affect them or anything like that. It's real.
Well, yeah, and this is why I think on Sean Payton's end, you see why people will say, I'm not thinking about that. I don't care. Because when you do open your mouth and you do share something that's real, this can be the end result. And the funny thing is, as a former Falcons, or not former Falcons fan, I shouldn't say that. Current Falcons fan.
Talk yourself into
it. Yeah. But former Sean Payton adversary is what I should say, because he was on the Saints for all this year. I feel like I'm getting everything I want here, because as much crap as Sean got this week, he still wasn't wrong about what he said about Nate Hackett and what happened in Denver last year. But he has instantly become like such a terrible messenger for that, because the Broncos are probably worse than they were last year, which is it's an amazing thing to say when you look at how bad that offense was last year, but they still had a defense. I remember one of the stats last year about the Broncos was, well, if they had just scored 17 points in every game, they would have been like 10-7 or something like that. And now they can't stop a cold. Like I've never seen their run defense is on, like, if you were to take Alabama and let them play against like group of 5 teams every week, I'm sure this is what the totals would look like, where, I think over the past month, they've given up almost 800 yards on the ground, which is just, it's unfathomable. And then obviously Brees had another huge day. So Sean, I guess you learned your lesson here. We'll see if he is able to stick around through the whole season.
Yeah, the crazy thing is like there's no one's mistaken Nathaniel Hackett, for the job that he did last year with Denver. It was a horrific job. There's no question about that. But I'll point out a couple things. Through 5 games, Sean Payton has a worse record than Nathaniel Hackett. Okay, Nathaniel Hackett was 2-3. Sean Payton was 1-4. And you were talking about that defense, right? That defense last year was real. Like they were one of the best defense in the league last year. They're on pace right now. They are the second worst defense in the history of the National Football League. Think about that. They went from one of the best defenses in the league last year to right now, they are statistically the second worst defense in NFL history right now. So you can say what you want about Nathaniel Hackett and, all the mess that he had, going on in Denver last year, but Sean Payton can't really say anything right now compared to what Nathaniel Hackett was doing at this point last year.
And then that's the amazing part because it's all gotten so bad for him since he said those things. And I think, one of the frustrating parts for Sean has to be is, you came in to fix Russell Wilson. And to a degree, like he's done that. Russell Wilson is playing a lot better than he was last year. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all.
No, it doesn't matter because listen, you're not just the head coach of the quarterback, you're the head coach of the team. And so when you have one side of the ball completely collapse, fall apart, at the end of the day, all the blame, all the smoke goes towards you.
Yeah. We'll get back to the Broncos a little bit later. I just thought it was funny because look, I'm so with Jets fans on this fight against Sean Payton because Sean Payton, Jimmy Graham, Drew Brees, Marcus Colston, those guys made like my teenage years an absolute hell. So I'm with this. I'm riding with Jets fans on this, and any way I can help, Jets fans, just let me know. I'm in your corner. Falcons Nation is with you. Let's move on to another person who maybe is struggling with the idea of how they've been humbled very recently. Cowboys linebacker Micah Parsons, all worlds, absolutely phenomenal, amazing player. It's funny, like I've talked to some like former NFL offensive linemen. They're like, damn, bro, I'm so glad I didn't have to try and chase him down while I was playing. I know there's been guys, but dude, he's really running a 4.3 out there at like 250 pounds, which is absolutely insane. But he said, quote, after they lost 42-10 to the 49ers on Sunday Night Football for the world to see, Micah Parsons said, quote, I don't think the 49ers are on a higher level than us. I think we're the same caliber playoff team. Wow, I don't really know how you can say that, Micah. Like,
Micah, bruh. I'm just let me look right into this camera real quick and just address Micah on this. Bro, you can't say that. You can't say that after you get a 42-10 drubbing. Like you got to eat your humble pie on this one, bro. Like, I understand you got a lot of belief in your team, but when you get beat down like that by the 49ers, you just got to admit it. Now, I'm not saying that later on in the season, your team can't improve, things can't change, because I was a part of, when I was with the Jets with Rex Ryan, we got beat by New England 45-3 on Monday Night Football. We got our teeth kicked in, and then we saw them again in the postseason, and we beat them at their place in the playoffs. So things can change. But for right now, bro, like, you howl something. Like, you can't say that. You can't say that.
Okay, well, I to a degree, I kind of get it, because, like, what else are you going to say if someone asks you about that? But to say they're not on a higher level than us, well, that's not true. 42-10. They beat you guys in the playoffs 2 years in a row, right? Because they had the wild card game 2 years ago, then they had the division round game this year, then they had the 42-10 loss yesterday or on Sunday night. They own you right now, like, for sure. But I will say, I'm not sure how much shame there is in that, because the 49ers own everyone. They haven't played a close game yet this season, which is kind of a remarkable thing to think through 5 games of the NFL season. Because if you go back through their game logs and look, remember they beat the Rams 30-23, but Sean McVay kicked a field goal literally as time was expiring to cut the lead from 10-7. So it's not even like that one was super close by the end of the game. But what you can't do is say, I don't think the 49ers are on our high level list. Don't gaslight me, Micah. Don't gaslight me. They just scored 42 points.
Yeah. Listen, I think that the young blood, that's just him trying to make put a positive spin on everything. I get it. You want to try to find some type of positive out of, that debacle out there in the Bay. But listen, as far as the 49ers concerned, they haven't lost a game as Brock Purdy the starting quarterback. I know people will say, well, what about the, NFC Championship game? Brock Purdy didn't even play. He was I don't even count that game. You know what I'm saying? Against the Philadelphia Eagles. Brock Purdy is undefeated. That dude has not lost a game. That dude is a playmaker at the quarterback position. I think there's so many superlatives that you can throw at the 49ers, but the quarterback matchup between him and Dak Prescott, it's not even close. Brock Purdy is a legitimate playmaker at the quarterback position. I don't see that from Dak Prescott at all. I don't see any playmaking ability from Dak. Ever since he sustained that leg injury, the dude doesn't use his legs anymore, which is really leaves me scratching my head why? I don't understand.
Yeah, I was wondering. I thought the same thing as far as his, mobility is concerned, because you're right. If you look at the attempts, how many times he's trying to run the ball and what he's getting out of them, it's gone down since that leg injury. I wonder, just from your experience, do you think that maybe it's a fear? Oh man, if I get caught lacking out in open space again, maybe this could happen to me, or maybe he's just not as fast as he used to be. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it could be a combination of what you just said, to be honest with you. It could be, the fear of, I don't want this to happen again. Because it was a bad injury. It was bad. And he could have lost some juice from that injury as well. But I always say, the dude is he's not a statue in the pocket. He can move. I just wish he would use more of his playmaker ability, try to improvise a little bit, get on the run a little bit more. Mike McCarthy needs to help him out, as far as designing the plays. But let's just be real. Mike McCarthy's never been the most imaginative play call out there. You could see that. Look, all you had to do was watch the game. Look at the difference between the way Mike McCarthy was calling plays, the formations and motions. Compare that to Kyle Shanahan. It was like going from 90s football to 2023 football. It was a stark difference in how those two teams played the game of football.
Well, from your perspective, how does the use of motion, how does that make life easier for an offense? What changes the math for you there?
Yeah, it does a couple things. Number one, it clears up the picture for the quarterback. So with motion, you can give a telltale sign if a team is in man or in zone. So that helps the quarterback. And then number two, when you do motion, man, it forces the defense to communicate. Defenses, they want you to be static so they can just sit back and do what they want to do. But when you're throwing a lot of motions and doing a lot of stuff, shifting in formations, that forces them to communicate. And when they have to communicate, guess what that does? It slows them down because now they're thinking. Ultimately, defensive players, they don't want to think. They just want to react. They just want to go. So that's what that motion and all the stuff like Kyle Shanahan does with the offense. That's what it does to a defense.
Yeah. And it's funny how he kind of stumbled into, I still kind of struggle how good I think Brock Purdy actually is, but he stumbled into a quarterback that can do this perfectly for him for what he wants, because I think one thing that might be a little bit different at times from, where Jimmy G was with the 49ers, especially towards the end of his run, is Brock, he'll take some chances down the field, man. He and I think that opens some stuff up because now Kyle's now we have someone who at least will throw the ball downfield, and I know I can get it there. Because one of the craziest plays to me was on Sunday night, it was a play that Deebo Samuel had. He caught a big pass over the middle, and then you go back, you watch the film, he's running a dig at 25 yards down the field.
Yeah.
I'm just where'd they do that at?
Yeah. And you know what? And the ball placement, because there was, I think it was Leighton Vander Esch was was right underneath it. So he had to fit it between, over Vander Esch and in front of the safety. And he dropped it in a bucket I think it was Deebo Samuel on that pass. So that just shows you Brock Purdy, he doesn't have the strongest arm, but he does have arm talent to get the ball where it needs to be, especially down the field.
So where would you rank Brock Purdy right now? Because I feel like that's been a big debate waging over the internet over the past week or so. Like, how high are you on him?
The way he's playing right now, he's playing like a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah,
he really is. Like I think a lot of people, some people won't admit it because of his draft status, being that he was Mr. Irrelevant. But listen, yes, is Kyle Shanahan a genius play caller? Absolutely. But you still got to have a guy to go out there and execute it. And I think he's opened the envelope even more for Kyle Shanahan in his offense. You just spoke about it. Like the difference between him and Jimmy G, listen, athletic ability, I think he's more athletic than Jimmy G. He has better arm, and he's more accurate than Jimmy G. So that's just opened up a whole different aspect of this 49ers offense. So right now, Brock Purdy is in the conversation for MVP.
Oh, yeah.
He's in the conversation for MVP right now.
He might be the front runner right now, especially after Tua had that game on Sunday.
He could be. I mean, listen, we know the MVP is a quarterback award, right? It's going to go to a quarterback. So who's playing better than him?
I mean, as far as in terms of just pure production, no one is.
Right. Like, I mean, people, listen, Tua's putting up big numbers, but Brock Purdy is putting up numbers and he's taking care of the football.
Yeah. I almost wonder if it's not like too far to wonder if this 49ers team could win every game they play this year. Like I think it gets a little tough over the back half because you have to go to Philly, you play Cincinnati, Baltimore's a tough game. But outside of that, I kind of think they can just run through the schedule unless someone like the Seahawks or the Jaguars gives them trouble. Is it too early to to start waving the flag on this team might be able to go 17-0?
Well, listen, we just hit the quarter mark. We just hit the quarter. But listen, even this quarter, you see how dominant this team is? Like, they're dominant in all 3 phases of the game. Like, their defense suffocates you. Offensively, they're physical. They got what weapon do you take away? Usually with teams, you're like, okay, we need to try to take Jamar Chase away. I know they have 3 wide receivers, but obviously you need to take away Jamar Chase. Or, with other teams, they usually have a primary target that you try to take away. Well, who do you take away with the 49ers? Because they got, like, Brandon Ayuk is balling. Debo's balling. George Kittle's balling. CMC is balling. Wait till Elijah Mitchell comes back. He's going to be another one that's going to be into the mix. So it's just going to be tough against that team.
Yeah, and the scary thing about where the 49ers is right now is, you watched that game on Sunday. They beat the Cowboys 42-10, which is incredible. It's not like Dallas is a bad team, though, right? Because they beat the Giants 40-0. They beat the Jets 30-10. They beat the Patriots 38-3. I know they had to slip up against the Cardinals, but like 3 blowout wins in 5 weeks in the NFL is still really impressive. I don't really care who you're playing. They beat that team 42-10. Go ahead.
Let me ask you a question. Was that game more about the way the 49ers look, or was that game about Dallas and their schedule and the teams they played up to this point?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's also the 49ers are just a terrible matchup for Dallas too. I think through 3 games, and it's 3 games. It's 2 different defensive coordinators because they've gone from in the past 3 years. They've gone from D'Amico Ryans to Steve Wilks. They just, for some reason, they just have no answer. I don't know if it's the offense isn't fast enough, Fred Warner just being amazing. They're able to load up on defense, but for whatever reason, man, I think it's a little bit of both. But the one of the biggest takeaways I got from that game is this version for the 49ers, just they own Dallas. They own Dallas because even back in the divisional round, they couldn't do anything on offense either, but they got a better game from their defense. So you were kind of in it until the very end. And then we got Ezekiel Elliott's last play as a Cowboy where he's playing center and gets blown up and, the hilarity ensues. But what I was about to say is the schedule is probably weak for Dallas, but they still beat a team that has 3 blowout wins by 32 points. and they can still get better this offseason because Brock Purdy's making so little money. You know, like he's next year, Brock Purdy's base salary, $985,000.
See what people don't understand. That's the beauty of when you got a quarterback for cheap, you can do so many things as far as building out your roster. And like you said, man, they can continue to add to it. They can go out in free agency and go shopping, go hunting for more talent to add to this roster because the quarterback is so cheap. 49ers are sitting pretty. The fact that they absolutely, I don't know if I want to say luck. Oh, the hell, I want to say it. They lucked and found Brock Purdy as Mr. Irrelevant, and he's playing this well. That saved them because the smoke they should have been getting from that Trey Lance situation was neutralized by Brock Purdy.
Oh, I think it's definitely fair to say it's luck, for sure. I mean, if it wasn't lucky, they would have had him drafted a lot higher than the last pick in the draft. You know, if this was their plan, they probably would have taken him in the first round or with whatever first pick they had as soon as they possibly could. So, man, it's crazy that this has worked out in their favor. And now, dude, if I'm Brock, bro, I'm looking over and I see Daniel Jones making $40 million a year. My contract's up in 2 years. Like, I got to ask for like 60 off principal, you know?
off principle. I'm going to ask, look, y'all see what I'm doing out here. Yeah, I need that 60.
Yeah, and then we'll work from there. But for now, look, they still got 2 years of Brock Purdy's contract after this season. So I guess really 2.5. By the end of Brock Purdy's rookie contract, he will have made $3.7 million, which obviously is not anything to sneeze at. Just for normal people, I would love that $3.7 million. But in terms of just like how you're structuring the team and what he's contributing to the 49ers while he's making this, you can go out, you can sign another big free agent next year, like to make the offense even better. Or you can re-sign Brandon Ayuk and give him the money that he's going to be looking for in free agency. It gives you so much flexibility. I remember I was talking to one of my friends the other week when they traded for Randy Gregory. He was like, man, how the hell do the 49ers have the cap space to trade for Randy Gregory? I'm like, because their quarterback costs nothing.
That's right.
Nothing.
That's right.
And you're getting an MVP level play.
It's the embarrassment of riches for the 49ers right now.
Yeah. Well, one more thing before we kind of move on a little bit on this Cowboys 49ers game. Dak Prescott said that, quote, this might be the most humbling game I've ever been a part of. Are you buying or selling the Cowboys just in general after that game on Sunday?
Well, I'm selling them as far as a contender right now. But again, like I said, man, I've been in this situation before where you get spanked, and then you later on in the year you have opportunity and you go out and win. So I'm not completely writing off the Cowboys because again, we just hit the quarter mark. There's still so much football left. Things can happen in this season. So I think the Dallas Cowboys got to look at themselves in the mirror like that. They're the measuring stick. Okay. What do we have to do to try to get to their level? So they got basically two and a half months, whatever it is, to get themselves, figure it out, get themselves together, because they're going to see them again.
Yeah, they're
going to see them again, and you need to figure out what we have to do to try to beat that team. They're the standard right now.
I'm sure Jerry's probably got some lagoons where you can kidnap like Brock and Kyle before the game starts. You go missing at an old Texas saloon somewhere. That's what I'll be doing.
Right.
Beat my ass 42-10. And most likely in the playoffs, we're going to be back at San Francisco at this rate. Yep. So Godspeed. Before we get into a little exercise that I want to run through, do you have any other big takeaways from week 5 that you've been thinking about? Any hot takes you want to get off your chest? There's some takes, man, that the Panthers might have already picked the wrong quarterback.
CJ Stroud CJ Stroud's a baller. Like that dude, right now, he's making the Carolina Panthers look foolish right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Bryce Young can't go on to become a really good quarterback, but that dude has come out guns blazing early this season. If you're the Houston Texans right now, you got to be feeling good about where you are as an organization and where you're headed. Because when you got a young quarterback playing this well, you know what's going to happen? It's going to attract other people.
Yeah.
There's going to be other free agents that are going to be like, I want to go to Houston. You know why? Young quarterback, no state taxes. I'm telling you, trust me, people think about those type of things, man. So they're in a good position right now. D'Amico has done a hell of a job with them boys.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's interesting about Houston, even though the mighty Dirty Bird Atlanta Falcons took him down yesterday, Desmond Ridder, game of a lifetime. I think what's interesting about them, and you go back to the draft, and people were criticizing them. Oh my God, you can't take someone at 2 and then trade up to 3 and pick another player. But I think they've kind of shown the merits to adding 2 blue chip players to your team. And they still have the Browns' first round pick for next year, which could turn out to be something depending on however Deshaun Watson closes out the season, now that he's the leader of that offense. But, I think that was a moment for me looking back where it's like, man, sometimes we just overthink this a little bit. Complaining about adding CJ Stroud and Will freaking Anderson to your team, who should have been a Heisman contender, a couple of years ago at Alabama. Sometimes it's just good to add 2 guys who have a chance to be elite at their positions, and quarterback and edge rusher. Maybe we should give us a little more credence to just adding dudes and then letting the rest kind of fill out.
Yeah, listen, man. A lot of times people talk about the draft is a crapshoot. So you want to add more draft capitals to give you a better opportunity to hit. But when you got an opportunity to add 2 dogs, like they've hit jackpot. Now I know it's early in their career, but if they keep going on this trajectory, those are like franchise altering picks where those guys could be doing their thing for a decade plus. So, hey, man, like Nick Caserio and company, kudos to them for doing something that's really unconventional.
Yeah. Yeah. But, we're talking about crapshoot. Something that feels very safe to me would have been drafting Will Anderson. Right. So I think you can look at it from 2 ways. Like the crapshoot in terms of, well, let's just get as many picks as we can and dart throw. Or you can do what teams have done and say, well, that guy is really good. I know he's really good. I'm going to go get him. Like, I remember when the Falcons traded up for Julio Jones. It was a big cost, but Julio Jones was Julio Jones,
What's really good.
Yeah, so I think maybe we should tweak it to when we feel like there's a guy who is kind of can't miss. And I know can't miss is subjective, but when you look at Will Anderson's college career, and you look at the combine he had, you're checking off boxes all the way through, and it's obviously ended up to be a great pick for them. So that's enough positivity for this podcast. This is called the Exempt List for a reason, right? We're trying to get after some teams. So there's 3 teams right now that I want to talk about who are 1-4, and I think when you're at this point in the season, I don't know how I feel about the idea of tanking in general. I think it's to a degree is kind of despicable. You're going to have these conversations like, should we start selling people off? Should we start trading for the future, getting more assets so we kind of restock this roster in the offseason? Start with the Vikings, who got hit with some bad news today. Justin Jefferson put on IR. Adam Schefter tweeted essentially, if things go really bad this season for the Vikings, you might not see it again, because what's the point? Do you think it's time for the Vikings to start selling? And if they do, would you trade Kirk Cousins if you were them?
If I'm the Vikings, I thought coming into the season that they would do some form of tanking, because when you look at the Vikings, they're in the worst place you want to be, stuck in the middle. Where you're not terrible, but there's no way you're gonna compete with anybody at the top. And so if I'm the Vikings, your best player going on IR, if you keep losing games, why would Justin Jefferson come back this year? Like, it doesn't even make sense, especially, he wants a new contract. you got to pay him. So if I'm Justin Jefferson, if this team keeps losing, I'm not coming back. You know, when I got a pot of gold sitting for me, you know, on the other side, as far as a contract extension, I would absolutely look to trade Kirk Cousins. If you're going to lose, then just go all in. Like, you got all these quarterbacks that's coming out this year. You got an opportunity to go for Caleb Williams and the May kid from North Carolina and Penix from up in Washington. Like, bro, I'm not going to keep trotting out Kirk Cousins and we still losing. Sell them off. Get some more assets. That way, okay, we're going to keep losing. We got an opportunity for one of the, you know, for Caleb Williams possibly. I'm doing that 100%.
Yeah. It's just tough. I think one of the interesting questions is, where do you send them? Because maybe there are teams who feel settled on their quarterback situation right now. I'm not really sure like where you would send him, but I don't think the idea of him, you know, of them going, ugh, we're cooked this year. They've already kind of started to leak stuff. You know, hey, if we suck this year, probably just going to shut Justin Jefferson down because we don't need him. Now it's about finding a trade partner. I think New England's kind of interesting as far as, you know, I don't know if you could get their first round pick because they're slated to pick pretty high too, but Belichick, he just kind of seems like a guy, man, if I can just get back to baseline, competent quarterback play, I will take that. I will take that. And I guess one question I have for you is, so if you were on a team, right, and you're 1-4, and guys start getting traded around you, like what would that do to the vibe in the locker room, or what does that do to, like, you know, how guys are thinking about the team moving forward?
Oh, everyone would know like what the season is all about. Like, once you're bad, the team starts selling off parts. You know what time it is. Like, okay, we're not trying to win this year, but as far as you as an individual, you got to go out there and do your thing, because the way you think about it is, well, my tape is my resume, right? There's 31 other teams out there, so I can't go out there and quote unquote tank myself and put out bad tape just in case I get moved, you know, whatever the case may be. So the players are going to go out there and do their thing. The organization just, you know, might have it otherwise as far as, you know, what their motives are for the season.
The Vikings, you know, through this Justin Jefferson stretch, if it is only the 4 games, that's mandated by, you know, the new injury reserve rules. Bears versus the 49ers, at the Packers, at the Falcons. It's like not impossible that they could survive that outside the 49ers game. I mean, that's just going to be disgusting, inhumane things happening over there.
Right.
But still, like, without Justin Jefferson for this team, that's kind of a tough spot for them to be in. And it's funny that, to me, the funniest part about the Vikings is they're kind of playing the exact same games they were last year, except they're losing.
Right.
You know, because they were in all of these close one-score games last year, and those results have kind of flipped on their heads, because the results of their games this year, 20-17, 38-24, 28-24, 21-13, 27-20. You're in all these games, which to me, that also makes it a little bit hard to push the reset button. But also, you know, having Justin Jefferson out, it might just force your hand a little bit. I think it'll be interesting to see if they start getting, you know, serious offers on Kirk and what those materialize to be, because I think there's also some teams that could talk themselves into being okay with where they are without Kirk, but, you know, someone might get desperate in a couple of weeks. We'll give it a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it also could take an injury. Someone get injured and be like, okay, we still got a good team. Maybe we make a trade or something like that. So again, you never know how a situation pops up.
All right, let's move on to a team I have a lot of questions for you about as far as the offensive line goes, and that's the Giants.
Wow. Wow.
First of all, have you ever seen anything like this before? Where the offensive line, I know they're hurt, but damn, dude, like, they don't have anyone that's stepping up for them right now.
Well, let me say this, man. I can't even use the injury thing as an excuse, to be honest with you. There are teams out there that have injuries along the offensive line, and they look nothing like the way the Giants have been performing. And so for me, it's a combination coaching, and honestly, it's the offensive line. as our former offensive lineman, where's the damn pride at? Like, how you go out here? No one's going to mistake the Seattle Seahawks for the 85 Bears. And them cats had 11 sacks on prime time? Like, come on, man. Like, at some point, y'all got to be throwing some fisticuffs on the sideline. Like, got to do something, man. Kind of get it going, get some juice. Yeah, man. Like, you got to at least like have a fight on the sideline or something to show people that you care. Like, to get totally punked at your place on Monday Night Football and get embarrassed like that, I can't. It's hard to even explain, bro. It's hard to explain.
Yeah. So I think one of the craziest things to me is like sometimes you have a team where, okay, well, they gave up 11 sacks. You're like, wow, that sucks. But usually not really the norm. That's kind of been the norm for this team because they gave up, 8 sacks first, Dallas. They gave up another 7 sacks on Sunday against the Dolphins. And this is a Dolphins team that didn't get home at all the week before against Buffalo. And they had 7 sacks. Like, it's so bad. And then I kind of feel bad for that kid, Josh Azudu, who's playing left tackle in place for Andrew Thomas right now. Man, it's a tough. Listen, I will say that the Giants' offensive line is very charitable. They're in a very giving mood this season, and I feel sorry for the left tackle, man. He's thrown in an impossible spot. Andrew Thomas is one of the best left tackles in the league, and he's been hurt. And to be out there, man, and just week in and week out, you getting abused, man. And then Evan Neal, bro, like, when are we going to see you actually play some ball? And then you got the nerve to go out there and trash the fans like that. Like, you never go against the fans. Like, you can't win that battle. And you going out there and getting abused out there on the field. Call burger flippers.
Yeah, burger flippers. Like, bro, you went all the way out. You went all the way out there, bro. Like, you was assaulting people verbally by that statement, man. Like,
and then you left yourself open. He left himself open to so many things. Like, we're now when he has a bad play, Giants fans, like, they're in the comments. Well, now look who's gonna be burger flipping now soon. Like, why'd you do that, Evan? I understand the frustration. I understand things aren't going right, but you were the 7th overall pick in that draft class. At some point, it's gonna have to improve. Like, the onus is gonna have to be on him to improve. And to me, that's been a real interesting one because coming out of the draft, I thought that he was gonna be someone that, hey, like, plug and play right tackle. Like, this is gonna be something that can work out for them. When you look at how good Andrew Thomas has been, I thought they had like their bookend duo for the future, but right now all they have is Andrew Thomas, and he's not healthy.
He's not healthy. And listen, man, I mean, I had my questions on him coming out in the draft, but I didn't expect him to be this bad. Like, he is awful. Yeah. He's awful right now. So I don't know where the Giants go from here because you can't protect. Listen, everyone wants to pile on Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones is not playing well, but tell me what quarterback can operate under those conditions.
Right.
With that offensive line. You just can't do it.
You can't do it at all. So, because I only I played line myself. I only made it to like D3 at college, but still, you want to look at the sacks and say, oh man, that's that quarterback. He's holding the ball too long. It's not offensive line's fault. But no. I think with this one, it's a little bit different. If you had to guess right now, how many, like, on what % of Daniel Jones dropbacks he was getting sacked, what would you guess?
I would say
it's a pretty hefty number. I'm looking at it right now.
I would say 45%.
Not 45, but he's like 15% sack rate.
That's high. I thought it was gonna be some gargantuan number, but 15% of your dropbacks, like, that's just dropbacks. Like, 15%. That's crazy high.
Yeah. Now, I would love to get, like, just how many plays is he under pressure is probably closer to, like, 45, 50, maybe even more than that, because that dude has no time to throw. And then it's just neutered the whole Giants offense because when you can't stand tall, you have no time. Now you're just stuck to, like, dinking and dunk plays, which are super easy to stop. So getting back to the original point here, is it time for the Giants to start selling stuff off? And I guess I don't even know what they really have to sell. Like I was looking at their roster. You could probably trade off Leonard Williams for something. Probably want to hold on to Dexter Lawrence. Excuse me, to Dexter Jackson. Wow, that's a throwback.
Wow, that's a throwback.
About probably about 150 pounds smaller too.
Yeah.
See, Dexter Lawrence probably a keeper. Kayvon Thibodeau's probably a keeper. Andrew Thomas is obviously a keeper. But I feel like if you're the Giants, literally anyone else can be had for a pick. Daniel Jones, if you want Saquon Barkley, you should probably call them about that, because what's Saquon Barkley going to change about this season, even when he comes back? You're 1-4, and at this point, you're counting on a running back to kind of save the season for you with all the crap that you have going on. I think he's a great player, but if I'm the Giants, I'd probably think about flipping him for something, because his presence alone is not going to change us from 1-4 bad to something that can compete for a division title. So.
Yeah, listen, I think you gotta start thinking about draft capital, getting more with Joe Shane, man. Like that roster is not very good. It's not very good right now, and you just gotta start loading up. You already made your bed with Daniel Jones in that contract. You got to live with that. So you got to get cheap players. You got to get cheap players and coach those guys up and develop them. So you need draft picks to get those type of players.
Yeah, it's early on the Joe Stone front, but you look at the 2 draft classes that he's had when he was with the Giants. He's got 3 first-round picks. Kayvon Thibodeau, I think he's a good player. He's already got 4 sacks this season. He's one of the few bright spots on the team. Evan Neal, we just talked about. That's been tough. Wan'Dale Robinson was a second-round pick in 2022. He's been hurt a lot, hasn't played too much for them, so we'll see what happens. We talk about Josh Azudu, who played guard at North Carolina, flipped out to tackle, hasn't worked out. Moving on to this year's draft, Deonte Banks, I think he's going to be a guy that can stick around the league at corner. I think he's a good fit for the man coverage scheme when they're not playing, the Dolphins and the fastest teams ever graced the NFL. Then you go to John Michael Schmitz, who has not had a good start to his career at all so far. And then Jalen Hyatt, I mean, it's almost like these offensive line picks have been so bad, where you look at Evan Neal, Josh Azudu, John Michael Schmitz, is hampered the ability for anyone else to even get off the ground. Because even Jalen Hyatt, you can't throw a deep pass to Jalen Hyatt in conditions like this. You'll never get the pass off. So I don't know what they do.
Yeah, until they get the line fixed, a lot of the same issues. Like you can't even utilize other draft picks until the line gets fixed. So like they got to get the line of scrimmage taken care of before they can even move forward as an organization.
Look, I'd be starting to sell stuff. I understand it's tough to pull the trigger, because I think it's easier to talk about tanking when you're in the off season, right? Well, we'll try and use this year to develop guys, and you have a younger team maybe, but when you actually get into playing the football games, you never ever want to lose any football game that you are a participant in. I don't care how set up you are to lose a game. When the game starts and you go through a whole week of practice preparing for a game, you want to win. Like, look at the Cardinals this year.
I was just about to bring up the Cardinals. Everyone thought the Cardinals were going to be tanking. Everyone like they were the slam dunk pick that, they're going to tank and get Caleb Williams. Look at how they're playing. Look at how Josh Dobbs is playing. Josh Dobbs is going to be a starting quarterback, whether it be with the Cardinals or some other organization next year. The way he's playing right now, they're clearly, I mean, to me, they're in a better spot than the New York Football Giants right now as an organization.
Yeah, they are. They are. And it just goes to show, you can try to assemble the worst team that you want. You trade out your pick. You cut Colt McCoy, who had been seen as a quality, bridge starter quarterback. You roll with Josh Dobbs. But when the games actually start, everyone's going to try the hardest. It's just, Well, because obviously you'll get hurt if you're not trying your hardest too. Like
Right.
I'm not trying to leave the field on a stretcher, but I always think that that's such an interesting part about tanking when, sometimes fans will be like, well, why isn't this team losing more games? Because there's too much pride involved.
That's right. That's right.
What do you mean?
That's
What do you
right.
mean? I'm about to go out here and lose these games?
Try. Right. These guys are going to actually try and do the jobs out there.
Yeah, I ain't no damn loser.
Yeah.
I gotta try. Okay, last team that we're gonna get to before we get you out of here. We already talked about them briefly, the Denver Broncos, and really, like they've kind of started this process already because they traded away Randy Gregory, and I don't know if I really want to ask the question: should they trade Patrick Surtain, because that's probably the next piece that you could. That's like one of the next pieces you could actually get assets for. That would be tough to give away. But, we're talking about guys like Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, maybe, that you could trade off. I don't think those guys are really going to command huge picks. Well, I think the interesting question here is, could the Broncos be in store for another one-and-done coach? And I think that this situation is different from where other teams have been, where you look at like Mark Davis and people were pushing for him to fire Josh McDaniels last year. And basically the reporting came out was, Mark can't really afford to fire Josh McDaniels after he's already paying off this John Gruden settlement money. That's not quite the case for the Denver Broncos. That Walmart money is long, boy. It's long.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was doing some research last night. I stumbled upon what the Walton family estate was valued at in 2020. It was valued at $215 billion. $215 billion. Like, you fire Sean Payton, that's not even pocket change.
Nothing. That you can find that under your couch, like under a cushion under your couch or something. Like, it would be nothing for them to be like, yeah, we're done with this. We'll move out. We'll pay the whole staff off, bring in another top-notch staff. No big deal. Now the question is, would they actually do something like that? What if the thing continues to spiral? What if they just continue to lose? Would they really pull the trigger with Sean Payton one and done? I mean, Sean Payton's kind of a revered coach in this league.
I know. He is. But or maybe you just fire Vance Joseph and say, hey, why did we bring him back to be our defensive coordinator after we already fired him to be our head coach? Maybe that's what you ask yourself. But it's crazy that they're in this situation back to back. And like you said earlier, they're off to a worse start this year than they were last year. One thing that I kind of thought was surprising from that game on Sunday, like just from an opponent's perspective, like with the Jets, you had a game on Sunday against the Chiefs where Zach Wilson put together the best game of his career, just in terms of looking like a competent quarterback, making the throws he needed to make. And then they kind of held back a little bit, I thought, in that Broncos game. We're just like, yo, if you're going to try to let him sling it against any team, this is the defense. I mean, shoot, they just gave up 400 rushing yards 2 weeks ago. Breece Hall's going crazy. I thought that was a little bit interesting, but it just goes to show that the fact that I think Zach Wilson should have a day on your defense is where that's a huge place to fall from where they were last year, where you could have easily said this is the best defense in football. Like, I don't understand how they've just dissolved in such a horrifying manner so fast, man. It's crazy.
They literally went from, I think the Broncos were like a top 10 defense. Like, they felt like one of the best defenses that had an inept offense, and obviously Russell Wilson was playing god-awful, to now, again, being the second worst defense in the history of the National Football League in like a calendar year, less than a calendar year. They've been awful on defense, awful. So I don't think they get rid of Sean Payton, but Vance Joseph can kiss the baby goodbye. Like, he can kiss the baby goodbye. That's over with, man. You can't have that going on out in Denver, bro. Like, he's gone. And that's the easiest move you make. Now, I think the Pat Surtain trade possibility that you brought up, if they keep losing,
someone's going to call, man.
Someone's going to call. people are going to call when you get closer to trade deadline, because I think they could get like 2 first-round picks for Pat Surtain.
It should look like the Jalen Ramsey trade, 2 firsts and something else.
Yep. Like, they're going to think long and hard about that one.
All right. So before we hop off on this, to just, put it into a viewpoint where we can like demonstrate how far they've fallen off. Last year in 2022, the Denver Broncos, they finished the season 3rd in opposing yards per play. They allowed 5 yards per play. For every play that out there, the opposing offense got about 5 yards. That was 3rd in the league. This year, they are dead last, allowing 7 yards per play. 7 yards per play.
That's unheard of. That's unheard of. They're allowing almost a first down per play. That's crazy.
That's crazy, bro. That's what Reggie Bush was doing at USC, man. 7 yards of play. You give it to me, we're getting about a first down every time. And they're still far off from 31st. 31st is the New York Giants, who are at 6.3, which is a terrible mark within itself. But to be that far off from 31 at 7, like we've talked about, it's like it's not even real professional football at that point. Maybe at that point you look at this and say, this is just not working to such a point. We can't bring anyone back from this, players included. Like, it's all got to go. It's all got to start over. But they don't really have any keepers. It's like something that you would really want to hold on to that has a lot of value for the future, except for Pat Surtain. So we'll see what happens.
I would start. Yeah, they're going to seriously have to start thinking about selling off parts, because trust me, with that type of defense, it's not going to get better. It's going to continue to get worse, unfortunately for them.
Well, that's all I got for you today, man. I really appreciate the time. I know you're a big shot on TV, but still let the people know where they can find you. As we move throughout the rest of the season. Yeah,
man. Listen, all my handles are easy. Damien Woody, all one. Damien Woody on Twitter, X, Instagram, all of that. So holla at me, man. Shoot me something. I always be chopping it up on social media.
Always. Thanks to Damien Woody. We're gonna get into some voicemails now. I don't know how to feel about this because I don't trust you guys. I've been interacting with you guys for too long on Twitter. So when I shared the link, I assume we're gonna get some hilarity. I hope this grows each week. But I do like hearing from you guys. I think a lot of you guys are funny as hell. But I know I'm gonna have to take my licks along the way. So Stone, let's just get into it. Let's hear what the people have to say.
Hey Charles, I've been following you for a while. Justice stinks, by the way, and Madden, from what I've heard. Agreed. I'm a Ravens fan. Sports are terrible. This was a very bad weekend for me with the Orioles going through. I've never been a Harbaugh hater, but it's been 1.5 seasons with these brutal losses that really should never have happened. And at a certain point, I don't know what to do. Lamar's playing the best that's he's ever played, and I'm just hurting. I know the drafting could be better, and it was just absurd drops, but sports stink. I don't know. I'm rambling. Love the show.
No question. No, I appreciate that because I felt the same way. I mean, I love Lamar Jackson. I think he's one of the most exciting quarterbacks in the league, and he's one of the most talented guys. When you look at that, the game on Sunday, I actually wrote about it this week. He was so damn good. And when you come away from the final stat line, I think he was 22 for 38 with an interception and obviously the game-losing fumble at the end. It sucks because you and I both know, we know how this is going to be used. It's going to be disingenuous by the end of the season. And you're going to point to that game. Oh, see, he struggled again against the Steelers because we'll forget that they had like 3 walk-in touchdowns dropped and Nelson Aguilar dropped maybe one of the best passes I've seen Lamar Jackson throw, where he threw from the opposite hash all the way across the field perfectly into Aguilar's hands. It would have been a walk-in touchdown, and he dropped it. So, look, they need to fix this because, like you said, he's playing some of the best football of his career, maybe the best football of his career in terms of just being a pure passer, and they just wasted like an all-time throwing performance from on Sunday. So, come on, Ravens. I definitely don't think it's time to fire John Harbaugh, but need to do better than that.
Hey, Charles, man, huge fan. Listened to the Exempt List all summer 2022. It was great. Played a lot of PGA Tour 2K while I was doing that. Super fun summer. Happy to see you back here. My question is about the four wide receivers that went back to back to back to back in this year's draft, which was Jackson Smith and Jigba, Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, and Jordan Addison. How do you assess those guys' play to this point of the season, and what do you project is the outcome you think each of those guys are going to have in their careers, and who are you leaning towards as the best out of that group? Thanks a lot, man.
Right now, I think it's for me. It's between Zay and Addison. Addison is in a spot where he's about to get a absolute mountain of targets. We just talked about with Woody, Justin Jefferson. He officially got put on injury reserve today, so he's out for a minimum of 4 games. So that's a team that likes to throw the ball a lot. That's a team that's not afraid about airing it out no matter who their receivers are, because they feel like they have a quarterback that can deliver in Kirk Cousins. So, dude, he's about to get a ton of targets. So we'll find out real quick if he's going to sink or swim. And I think he's got the talent level to kind of swim. I don't know if he's a real deal number 1 receiver in the league, but I mean, being a 1B or a 2 to Justin Jefferson is a really good spot, especially in an offense that's going to throw the ball a lot. And maybe, depending on how the rest of the season turns out for them, if they end up with a top draft pick, then it could be Caleb Williams, Justin Jefferson, or Drake May, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison moving forward. I think that's a good spot for them. I think one of the more interesting fits that I didn't really get during the draft was adding Quentin Johnston to the Chargers, because I thought they kind of needed a receiver like Zay Flowers, someone that's going to go down the field and make big plays and, kind of be that big play guy that they haven't had over the past few years. But, Quentin Johnston, he's a good player. It was just weird that they kind of took another guy who needs to play underneath and then get yards after the catch instead of someone who can win over the top. But I think it's too early to pull the plug on any of them yet. Jackson Smith and Jigba, he's been hurt, and there's already a lot of mouths to feed in that offense, so I wouldn't panic about him just yet. I just think that Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers are in the best spots moving forward, and Addison for sure is going to see a ton of targets now that Justin Jefferson's out.
As a Jags fan that's living in Italy and got to watch the London game early, why the hell is everyone talking about how bad the Bills played and not how good the Jags played? Makes no sense to me.
Because we're just generally negative people, I think. And also, the Bills, they just beat the Dolphins 40-20. So I think a lot of the reaction was, wow, like you go in the chain reaction of Dolphins score 70, Bills crush the Dolphins, Bills lose to the Jaguars. I think that's kind of where people are getting the some of the hysterics from and some of the issues from. So, I think we kind of go back and watch that game. The Jaguars, they really did their things in terms of shutting things down, but it just became more of a story. Oh, the Bills, they got there on Friday. The Jaguars have been there for a week because they played the Falcons last Sunday in London. Happens. I don't know. It's football. I think that's a reasonable expectation or explanation for some of the things that we see.
Hey, Charles. Dylan here. So a lot of people have started getting up in arms over Stephen Ruiz's quarterback rankings, especially 49ers fans. And they're, saying things like the rankings are done by a big, stupid baby, a piece of who's bad at Madden, a Panthers fan. All real sick and twisted things to say about a person just because of where they have Brock Purdy ranked. But my question is, should the Ringer be put on trial for its crimes against humanity? Or did Stephen Ruiz do nothing wrong? Thanks.
Okay, well, first of all, I need to give some context here because Dylan is one of my friends that I've known for 8 years in this business. So, look, we're not firing real shots across the bow. This is strictly about our Madden franchise. We have an online franchise that we've been running for a couple of years now. Dylan's a part of that, and so is Stephen Ruiz, who has caught some flack this week for how he's ranked Brock Purdy in his quarterback ranking system. Personally, I think when you look at what the process is and where the numbers fall and how it's like a formula for ranking the players irrespective of their talent, the talent around them. I really don't think, having Brock Purdy ranked in like the high 20s is really that offensive, honestly, because the goal for that project is to say, well, hey, if I were to pull every quarterback from their team and just put in a vacuum, which quarterback would I be taking? I think you could pull a pretty long list before you get to Brock Purdy if I'm just starting a team from scratch. But I digress. Steven is not the one who needs to be charged for war crimes here. It's Justice. For people who have been following me in Justice for a while, they obviously know he's one of my best friends, but he's insane too. Like in our Madden league, I had to start a union against him just so that we could simply play our games without them getting cut off in the middle of it. It's a real thing that happened. So look, if we're going to talk about crimes against humanity, it's not The Ringer, it's not Yahoo Sports, it's not ESPN, it's Justice Mosqueda, and that will always be true. So Dylan, thank you for the question, and I hope that this gets back to you in a rather timely manner. That's going to be all of the voicemails that we take today. Remember, you can go to speakpipe.com/zeroblitz. That's speakpipe.com/zeroblitz to send a question to me or Jason Fitz for one of their shows. But, if you're going to be here and interact with us, I would appreciate if you could, you can take punches at me. Yeah, it's fine. It's a good time. But I appreciate you guys for interacting with this, and we'll be back next week. Like I said, we'll be back with another Exempt List every Tuesday. You can tune in tomorrow for an episode of Inside Coverage with Jason Fitz, Charles Robinson, Jory Epstein. I'm Charles McDonald. You can find me on Twitter at 4verts. Damien is at Damien Woody. We have Stone Rochelle behind the glass. You can find him on Twitter at SJ Rochelle. Leave a 5-star review, tell a friend, subscribe to the Zero Blitz podcast feed, and we will see you next week.